Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm doing another top 10. This is going to be a different type of top 10. It's going to be top 10 worst heroes in the game. So I will tell you in each of those heroes why they're bad. And to put a little spin, I will suggest a buff that would make them usable. Now, there are a lot of bad heroes in this game. I should say bad quality heroes. And I had to filter some of them out. So I did not include any season one heroes. I did not include any heroes that has a costume that's actually made the hero pretty good, such as Perseus with his costume. So costume is, made the hero really good. If anything, it made them one of the best blues in the game. I also did not include any hero that at least has one usability. So if a hero is good at Titans and but bad in every other situation, I still did not include that hero. Or if a hero is good at one type of war and just not usable in any other war or any other events on top of it, then I still did not include those type of heroes. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number 10, we have Zhuge Liang. So he's one of the War Three Kingdom heroes. He basically summons minions for all allies with counterattack, and summons fiends for all enemies with about 75% damage each turn. Now, this hero has undergone a lot of changes. This is the first release of the card. Minions used to be very low, and then they buffed him, and then they nerfed him, and then the last version with him was that the minions were up to 16% and or 17%, and then the counter attack was up and then down to 60%, and then the fiend attack was up to 75%. Now the problem with this hero is that he's slow. So at what he does no damage. He just does those minions and fiends, and those minions are still weak even at 17 or 16%. At slow speed, they're just not worth it. So a suggestion for a buff would be to change his speed altogether. I would honestly change his speed, and hear me out on this one, to fast speed. You have heroes like Cleaver, which hits with damage and gives fiends to all the enemies and reduces attack of all enemies for 4 turns. This guy at his minions HP, even if they do counterattack, I would still, at a fast speed, he would be more viable. He would be a really good hero and not overpowered. So this is my suggestion for number 10. At number 9, we have Rumpelstiltskin. So he's one of the Grim Forest heroes. At average speed, he triggers 1 of 3 effects at random. So I'm going to spare you. I'm not going to read all of them. But basically, one of them does attack, the second one heals, and the third one does attack up for allies and defense down for all enemies. And honestly, all of them are bad. Like, the attack is not high, the healing is not a lot, and the attack up and the defense down is not that great. So his original costume was really, really bad. So they come up with his second costume, or his, the costume they came up with, and that one they tried to buff him up. So the first effect, they make him reduce max health by 550 on top of poison damage of 60 for 4 turns, and the second effect, 620 health with boosted health if the health is full, and then the third effect is minus 54 mana percent for all enemies for 4 turns, and they're immune to status buffs. So his costume, even though they buffed it a little bit, it's still bad. Like, none of those effects are game changing or changing to the game itself. In these effects, they should be a high risk, high reward kind of thing, and there's really no high reward with these. There's only high risk. So my suggestion would be to instead of reducing max health, I would do something like 550% damage to all enemies. Like that would be high damage, but you're talking about a 1 to 3 chances. And on top of this, I would change the last effect, which is reduces 54% mana to all enemies. Instead, I would make it so that you reduce 54 mana or 54% mana regen, along with immune status effect buff for all allies. So there's be a high risk, high reward kind of thing. The health, I would keep it as is, but if you get the damage, you basically annihilate the enemy. But if you get the last effect, you're basically fucked, to put it simply. And I think he would be more fun hero and more usable. He's still not going to be top hero, but there's really no way around this. This is the only thing I can think of. So that's it for him. So at number 8, we have Claren. So he's one of the heroes of the month. He has 2 resistance skill. The first one is resistance against mana reduction, and the other one is blocks ailment that blocks special skill. So at slow speed, he gives 240% damage to all enemies, and second skill gives 205 water damage over 5 turns and absorbs 25% of the dealt water damage as health. So, you know, I'll state the obvious. I mean, at slow speed, 240%. I mean, we have heroes at fast speed that deals more damage than that. And you might say, well, he gives water damage, but just think about it. This is water damage over 5 turns. So 205, which is going to be 205 water damage each turn collectively, and heals about 25%, which would be 50. So 50 HP each turn. That's really nothing. There's no boosted health. Even with boosted health, it's not going to be good. So the 2 ways that can make this hero more viable is to increase his damage dealt. So it would be at 300. I would say 320 to 350, or increases water damage to something like 500. Or increases, even if you increase his mana speed to fast, 240% with the water damage, it's just not going to be good. So if they can make it something like fast speed, and he gives everyone like 250, and then the water damage, health or healing gets to all allies, it would be more viable. And he's still not close to being overpowered with that. So these are the suggested buffs for it. At number 7, I have Mysterio. So he's one of the secret heroes. So he deals damage to all enemies at very fast speed, and then he memorizes status ailments that are hit to him. So SG did a very bad job at buffing him. So they tried to buff him and they increased his damage that he's dealing to enemies to 157%, and I don't think that's the way to go. I think he's bad for 2 reasons. One is his stats are very weak, so his damage is not going to deal a lot, even at very fast speed. Like, he's not going to kill heroes. And the second reason why he's bad is because his summoning chances are so low. He's about 0.1%. So, not a lot of people are going to get him. I don't know if I have 1 or 2 of him, but he's just useless for those summoning chances. And the third reason why he's bad is his memorization skill. He can only memorize status ailment if he was hit. So my suggestions to buff him would be, at least, the very least, the memorization skill for status ailment should be if any of the allies were hit. So if fire hits up other allies other than him, he would still memorize it. Because if he's hit with all these status ailment, then he probably will die. So he's not going to be very useful if he doesn't memorize those status ailments, because his damage is not high. The other suggestion, which I think would make him viable and actually playable, is if he memorizes special skill. So if any special skill from the enemy hits your allies, he would memorize that special skill, and he would fire it off at an enemy. And then when he fired off that all those special skills, he would be reset, and the enemy would have to fire off their special for him to memorize again. And I can see this can be a little bit strong, but if it would need a little testing. Like, I'm not convinced that by itself is going to make him overpowered, but if it does create an imbalance, then I would move him to fast speed instead of very fast, and I think that would make him playable in this game. At number 6, I have Sam and Loki, and I know there are a lot of Sam and Loki lovers out there, but in all seriousness, he deals damage to all holy enemies, and then all enemies change color every turn, and if they change to yellow color, they would get damage. Now, SG tried to buff this hero, and they really did a bad job at buffing because they didn't understand why this hero is bad. And the reason why he's bad is, first of all, his damage is only to holy enemies. So, they buffed him from 225 to 250% to all holy enemies, which is still not a lot at average speed. And then they buffed his damage when they changed to holy color from 484 to 528, which is still, it's a good amount of damage, but you only talk about 3 turns. So if I would suggest a buff that would make him a viable hero on defense or offense, is to make him like Scotty, where the color change would not stop, so it would be unlimited, and they would take damage every time they change to yellow, but the difference is it would be cleansable, so it would not go away until you cleanse it. I think that would make him a strong hero, and it would make him more viable. It would not make him overpowered, and a lot of people still might not use him, but I think that's when you will see him more, or we will see him in wars more. At number 5, we have Noor. So she's one of the heroes of the month. She has a passive where she spawns a minion whenever an enemy summons a minion by their special skill. She summons a minion with 30% HP and 30% attack, and these minion kills any enemy's minion when they attack them. Now, SG tried to buff Noor, and they added the recover 10% health, and that really didn't change the hero. The main thing, or the main reason why people are not using this hero, is because it's a slow hero. So my suggestion is to move it to average speed. I mean, you have heroes like Arco at average speed and summons minions with the same amount of HP, and on top of that, you heal much more. So for her to become more usable, for people to use her, they would have to increase the health recover to 20% or 30%, and on top of this, they would make her at average speed, and she would become a powerful hero. Not an overpowered, but still a usable hero. At number 4, we have Mokar. So if you've been following my channel, you know Mokar is one of my all-time favorite heroes. Anyway, he deals 250% damage to all enemies, and then deal 80% damage to all allies, and he deals extra damage against Holy. And then all dark allies and enemies are immune to this attack. So I don't need to address the obvious of how bad this is. The fact that you're limiting this special and at average speed is just too bad. I mean, maybe when he was first released, to 50% was considered powerful, but over time, this is, with the power creep, this is nothing. And with the downside of it, it just becomes more useless. So SG was like, okay, well, we're gonna keep up with the time, and we're gonna release a custom version. So they do. And custom version is even worse. So they increased his damage a little bit, so it's 280%. But now he gives all allies and enemies 54% attack, and then all other allies and enemies that are not dark get minus 44% attack before turn. And if you have holy allies or there are holy enemies, this becomes uncleansable. So this is really bad, and the downside is actually more than the upside to the special. Honestly, I think the way to improve Mokar is to change his special a little bit and he becomes more niche. So I think Mokar, for him to be really viable, I think he should be the opposite of Ojima. So he would deal the same amount of damage of 280% at average speed, not fast, and he would consume all allies as minions. And for each minion, he would deal I don't know what Ojima does, 30 or 40% damage to all enemies. That would make him a very strong hero, and would allow for combinations such as Mokar and Sorrow. So Sorrow deals damage whenever the his minions are gone. So if you pair Mokar with Sorrow, it would be very powerful. It would use Sorrow's minions on top of it. Obviously, if that becomes too powerful, the damage can be scaled a little bit less, but I think that's what would make Mokar viable. At number 3, I have 2 heroes, and they basically do the same thing. So the first one is Morgan Li Fei. So she attacks one target, drains HP, and this is non-cleansable, and she increases the defense against fire for 4 turns. Obviously, this is unleveled, so her highest damage is about 675. The other hero is, let's see where she is. Okay, Natalia. So she does burn damage to one target and mana generation reduction. Both are not cleansable. So they do the custom version to make her more viable, and all what they did is increase the burn damage a little bit. She's not a good hero. Both of them are not good heroes because they attack one hero and their burn damage spans over 4 turns. So it's going to take a long time until you get the full effect. So if you're talking about her on defense, it would take 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 turns for them to charge up, and then for the burn damage to happen about 4 turns, and it's only to one target. So to make her more viable, those 2 heroes more viable, is to make it so that burn damage happens to the target and nearby enemies, and you would reduce the amount of turns that the burn happened to 3 turns, so that the burn damage would be higher each turn. That would be one suggestion. If they would keep the turns as 4 turns, I would suggest giving health back for each of the burn to Natalia, and that would give her boosted health if her health is full. For Morgan Li Fei would be the same suggestion as well. So that would be the way I would buff them, and I think they would be at least a little bit more viable. At number 2, I have Boss Wolf. So his special increases mana generation for the caster nearby allies by 24% for 4 turns, and it's non-cleansable. All enemies get minus 34% mana gen for 4 turns. And then the caster nearby allies counterattack with 115% damage for 4 turns. So the reason why he's bad is because he's very slow. I mean, you're talking about Alphaik, which is very slow. And that makes him very, very, very unusable. So he's unlikely to fire off his special. And if he does, he's not going to be usable at that point. So the simplest change to him is make him average. That's the simplest thing. I mean, you're talking about Ferrant. Ferrant, 4-star, does a better job than him. So just make him an average hero, and instead of caster nearby allies counterattack, you make it to all allies, and he'd be more usable. It's just a simple change. Finally, at number 1, we have Ixira, or Ishira, however you want to pronounce it. And I cannot express to you how bad this hero is. So, at average speed, she deals 237 water damage to all enemies, and an increase of 33 damage per each ice shield with an upper limit of 633 damage. This happens over 3 turns. It's not an instant damage. And uncleansable from fire enemies. And to top all this off, all ice enemies are immune to this attack. So, where do I start? Well, first of all, the fact that she deals only 237 water damage, and then the other damage depends on ice shield. So 33 per ice shield. So in order for her to get the max damage, you're gonna need at least, she's gonna need at least 12 ice tiles. Tell me how many times did you see ice tiles, especially if you're using an attack. By the time you charge her with she's average, you're not gonna have 12 tiles, so you're not gonna get max damage. And even if you did, it's gonna be 633 damage, and it's not an instant damage. It's over 3 turns, so each turn it's gonna be 211 damage. That's at max damage to all enemies. So you have fast heroes that deals that damage instantly to all enemies. You're talking about her dealing 633 at max damage over 3 turns. And what's worse about all of this is ice enemies are not affected. So, you know, if you use her on defense, I mean, that can bring in 3 ice heroes and they're not going to be affected. Just dump tiles into her and she's going to be useless. Even if you don't have ice heroes, the damage is really low. There are a lot of things that, you know, I don't even know where to start with her, to be honest. I mean, yes, her passive, she received 20% mana, but I mean, you would have to flip the hero all over, honestly. Like, she would need an increase in her damage by a lot more than what she is now. Even if you make her at fast speed, she's still not good. Even if you make her at very fast speed, she's still not good. So I would remove the second effect, which would make ice enemies immune to this attack. I would increase the damage to at least 3 or 4 times, at least 3 times. So it would be at least 600. You start at 5 or 600, and then you would do an additional with each tile. I think that would make her more viable and better. But the way she is now, she's not usable. And what pains me more than that, I mean, I know I dump on people limit breaking Salmon Loki, but I've seen limit broken Nishiras out there, and I just can't explain it. Anyway, that's the end of the list. I hope you like this list and at least a positive spin to it. If you have any other suggestions, let me know in the comment. If you have any other buffs that you would think for the hero I suggested would be better, let me know. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. And you know, if you like this content, drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.